Ansar Khan joins us on the Oakland County Megacast. He is the Detroit Red Wings and Detroit Pistons beat writer for MLive. Always great having you on the show. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you doing?
Busy couple days for you, I would imagine, watching the draft.
Yeah, certainly was. 12 picks over the 2 days. Their largest class since 1993. They added, kept trading down three or four times and added three additional picks. And that's what Yzerman had said before the draft. The more picks, the better.
Yeah, Steve Yzerman definitely loading up on the young talent and the draft capital in this particular draft. 6 of the top 70 picks. Let's start off with their first pick in the draft. They, of course, in the draft lottery, they had very high odds of selecting in the first 3 picks, and much like the oddities of the draft lottery affected them last year, it affected them again this year, and the Red Wings ended up selecting 4th overall. With that 4th overall, they passed on a variety of different players. One of the top-rated defensemen, a great young goalie in Yaroslav Askarov from Russia that brought a lot of comparisons to some Hall of Fame level goalies that have come before him, and ended up selecting an 18-year-old left winger, Lucas Raymond. Talk to us a little bit about Lucas Raymond for those who are not familiar with this young prospect and what he may bring to the Red Wings farm system going forward and eventually to the Red Wings in Detroit.
Well, apparently he's the guy that the Red Wings had targeted for quite a while. He's after it was determined that they would get the 4th pick. Uh, you know, uh, Being number 4, there's a separation there. Alexis Lafreniere was the clear-cut number 1 pick, and then everybody knew that 2 and 3 would be Quentin Byfield and Tim Stützle in either order. And then there was a bit of a separation. The draft essentially starting with the Red Wings at number 4. It could have gone any number of ways. There's probably 4 or 5 legitimate possibilities for them. Yzerman and Chris Draper both said that Raymond was the guy that they had identified long ago as the guy that stood out above that group, and that didn't change over the last few months. And they really like the whole package there. He's not particularly big, 5'11", but he's fast. He's a good skater, tremendous shot, good stick handling ability, good passer. And the one thing that really stood out to them that they mentioned over and over again was just his hockey sense and his hockey IQ. They say that that's something that is just in you. You can't really teach. And they said that that's really one of his strong suits. And as far as when Wings fans can expect to see him, it'll still be a while yet. Yzerman indicated he's in Sweden playing right now. The Swedish league is one of the few leagues that are actually throughout this pandemic are haven't shut down. So he's playing there, and Yzerman indicated he's likely going to stay there for the rest of the season, and then they'll evaluate things at the start of 2021-22 as to where he goes, whether he has a chance to come to North America or whether they keep him in Sweden for another season.
Ansar Khan with us, Detroit Red Wings beat writer and Detroit Pistons beat writer as well with MLive Media Group, joining us today on the Oakland County Megacast as we talk about the Detroit Red Wings, who had 6 of the top 70 picks in the recent NHL draft, entry draft. And you mentioned that Lucas Raymond will continue to play in Sweden for the time being, probably for at least a few years before being brought into North America and possibly to play for the Red Wings. And it's possible, too, that a lot of other Red Wings players in their minor league system may be sent and assigned to play overseas, especially with the uncertainty of whether or not their primary minor league team, that being the Grand Rapids Griffins, whether or not they may even get a season in. Do you expect to see more of the Red Wings minor league system, particularly those guys that are close to being ready to play in Detroit, maybe be sent overseas to get that last little bit of professional action before they're ready to play for the Wings? Or do you think that they risk it and hope that there is a season in there is a season to be played for the Grand Rapids Griffins.
Well, they've already assigned quite a few. I think about 8 or 9 at last count of their prospects, young players to European clubs. And I don't know if they have any more that they would be sending over there now. I think that's pretty much, they want to get their top prospects, the younger guys, obviously, they want them to keep playing. They want them to keep developing and not just sitting around and working out in gyms. They want them on the ice, and they were able to find spots for them in various European leagues. Of course, the problem is some of these leagues might be shutting down. I think word is that the Czech league is being suspended for 2 weeks now. They've got a few players there, including Filip Hronek and Filip Zadina. The German league it was suspended until at least December, which is why they reassigned Moritz Seider, their top pick in 2019, from Mannheim, his original German club, to a team in the Swedish league. They just announced that today. So, they've got several players over there. I think the ones that are in Sweden, and I think there's 1 or 2 in Finland, are okay. Looks like they'll continue playing. But the ones, in other leagues like the Czech Republic, on a little bit of shaky ground right now.
So, Ansar, you're in communications covering the Red Wings with Steve Yzerman, with Chris Draper, with Jeff Blashill, and this team as they're going forward in this rebuild. They're still several years away from really contending, but with Yzerman's MO in this draft being to load up on as many draft picks as he can get and get as much talent in, and with some recent actions, of course, in the last couple of years, trading away some of those more veteran players to bring in some of those assets and picks and clear some space to pursue other players in free agency and so on. Where do you see the Red Wings rebuild as of now? Are they loading up on these assets, building their minor league system so that they can accelerate this rebuild and try to use those assets to bring in more talent? Or are they slowly but surely trying to develop a team and do so with young talent that will eventually make its way to the NHL, and at one point maybe they just end up being loaded with that talent because of how they fostered their minor league system?
Well, certainly they're doing it through the draft, and that's really the only way you can go these days in the NHL. That's something that Yzerman stated time and again. The more picks, the better. The more picks you have, the better chance that more of those players will eventually find their way to the NHL. This isn't 20 years ago when you could revamp your team through free agency, which we saw the Red Wings do, pulling in so many big name free agents back before there was a cap. They could outspend virtually every other team because of Mike Ilitch's willingness to do that. And there was more, as a result, there were more big name free agents on the market back then, but it's a different game now under the salary cap. Everybody plays by the same rules. There are fewer big name free agents on the market. You have to really build from the draft, and that's what the Wings are doing. As far as how long, they've missed the playoffs 4 years in a row now. Where they are in terms of the rebuild, based on their performance last year, they got a long ways to go. I mean, they finished 23 points behind the next worst team in the league. So this is a team that's still, several years away from being real competitive as far as a contender, and probably at least a couple of years away from even competing for the playoff spot. One of their main problems has been, despite finishing near the bottom and last year at the very bottom, they're getting kind of screwed over in the lottery. They've dropped each of the last 4 years. They've dropped a few positions in the lottery. This year, they should have had the first pick based on their record. They dropped to 4th. That makes a huge difference. Even as much as they like Lucas Raymond and think he's going to be a real good player for them, you get an Alexis Lafreniere, and that kind of changes the outlook a little bit. A bona fide potential superstar, and that's what they need. Those kind of players. You need like a Sidney Crosby, and Alex Ovechkin, Connor McDavid. Those are the kind of players that really accelerate rebuilds, and those are the kind of players that the Red Wings haven't been in position to get, and that's why it's going to take longer for this team to get back to where it was.
Yeah, certainly a long ways to go with the Detroit Red Wings rebuild. Ansar Khan with us, the Detroit Red Wings and Pistons beat writer for MLive. We've seen Yzerman do it before. He's done it in Tampa Bay. He built through the draft mostly there, and Tampa Bay, of course, the Lightning have been contending for many years, a Stanley Cup winner, of course, in this season. So let's move on to the Pistons as we have just a few more minutes here. Their offseason still very much in its infancy. The NBA season's not even done. That could be a much different story in the next 24 hours with the Lakers up 3-1 over the Miami Heat and the Eastern Conference, representing the Eastern Conference. The draft scheduled for November 18th. The Pistons got the 7th overall pick in the draft lottery. Not exactly a loaded draft, but there are a lot of pieces there, and particularly at the positions that the Detroit Pistons need, most notably point guard. And on top of that, they're going to have enough cap space to make a couple of moves maybe in free agency as well. There are guys out there that could fit into the Dwayne Casey system and be nice pieces to add with the youth for the rebuild going forward. What are the Pistons' goals in terms of what they want to accomplish with this rebuild, with this revamped rebuild this offseason?
Certainly, first of all, you're talking about the draft. They really need a point guard. That's their biggest position of need. And where they are in the draft, although they're also like the Wings, they dropped a couple of spots in the draft from where their position was based on standings from 5th to 7th. But I don't think that hurts them as much as it hurt the Wings, because outside of in the NBA, outside of maybe the first 3 picks, Anthony Edwards, LaMelo Ball, and James Wiseman were expected to be the top 3. It's fairly balanced over the next maybe 7 to 10 picks, and I think if the Pistons and they should be able to get one of 2 point guards, Killian Hayes out of he's a French guy who played in the German league, and Tyrese Halliburton, who played at Iowa State. My guess would be that they're targeting one of those 2 guys, point guards, good-sized point guards, 6'5". If they can get one of those 2, I think it would be a successful draft for them. I would be surprised if both of them are gone by number 7. So that's certainly the main goal right now. And then you've got they just got to improve internally. Their younger players like Sekou Doumbouya, Bruce Brown took a good step last year when he was transitioned to point guard, although he'll be moving back to wing, his natural position next season. Svi Mikalik showed some signs. He's the kind of shooter that they really need. And then as far as free agency goes, they've got a lot of cap space, but they're certainly not going to use it, or if they use it, it would be on, acquiring kind of salary dumps, players with expiring contracts who they can move out at the trade deadline, for second round picks or whatever. It's a fairly weak free agent class, and there's no need to get yourself locked in a multi-year deal with anybody really right now. I mean, certainly there's top players like Fred VanVleet, who's been mentioned quite often, but I can't see why you would want to go from Toronto, championship contender, to Detroit, even though he has ties with Dwayne Casey, and there's some others, but I think 2021 would be the year. It's a better free agent class that they would look to fill some of their needs there.
Yeah, definitely looking like that's going to be the case, especially as we get closer to Blake Griffin's rather large contract coming off the cap. Ansar Khan with us from MLive Media Group the Detroit Red Wings and Pistons beat writer. We thank you for being with us today. Before we let you go, just about a minute left. Anything else that you'd like to tell us today?
No, just a lot of uncertainty about when the NHL is going to start. Gary Bettman announced a couple of days ago at the draft that the target is January the 1st. Certainly that's the hope. It's a best case scenario, and it'll be interesting to see whether they still plan on playing 82 games or not. And if they do, it would certainly have to go through August to get that in, or whether I think it would be probably more prudent just to play a condensed 48 game schedule like they have a couple times recently during lockout shortened years.
It's all still a wait and see game. NFL as well as hockey, football, baseball, as well as basketball. It's changing each and every day. Ansar, we thank you so much for your time.